I still don't know why I agreed to go on that camping trip. It was supposed to be a peaceful weekend, just me, Kyle, Jess, and Marcus, way out in the middle of Black Hollow Forest. Kyle found the place online, said it was remote, untouched, perfect for disconnecting. No cell signal, no traffic noise, just pure wilderness. I remember thinking it sounded like a great idea at the time. Looking back, I think we were too eager to get away, too eager to ignore all the little warning signs. The first day was uneventful. We set up camp before sundown, made a fire, drank a little, laughed too loud. The forest was dead quiet. No wind, no bugs, no animals. I remember that specifically because it was so strange. Even at night, there was no sound. Around 2 a.m., I woke up suddenly. I thought I heard a branch snap, close to the tent. I sat up and listened, heart pounding. But everything was silent. Too silent. I told myself it was probably just the trees or a raccoon, and forced myself to go back to sleep. In the morning, my backpack was missing. I found it maybe 15 feet away from where I'd left it. Like someone had picked it up and dropped it. Kyle said his boots were soaked. Said it was like someone walked through a stream in them. We joked about sleepwalking, but no one laughed. That day we went hiking, tried to shake off the weird feeling. Jess swore she kept seeing the same tree again and again, like we were walking in circles. We made it back to camp after a few hours, and that's when things really started to feel wrong. The tarp we'd set up had been taken down and neatly folded. A pile of firewood, freshly chopped, was stacked beside it. None of us had done it. We were all together the entire time. That night around the fire, nobody could really relax. Every now and then, we'd all glance toward the trees, thinking we saw movement. But there was never anything there. Just that heavy silence pressing in around us. The next morning, everything changed. We found a Polaroid tucked under a rock by the fire pit. It was a photo of us. Me, Jess, Kyle, and Marcus, sleeping. Our tents were clearly visible. The photo had been taken from above, like someone had climbed a tree during the night and snapped it while we were completely unconscious. My mouth went dry. Jess stared at it like she was going to be sick. None of us had a Polaroid camera. Hell, none of us even had service. That photo was proof. Proof that someone had been there, that they were close, and that they were watching. We packed up fast, barely spoke. The plan was to hike back to the car, 5 miles back through dense woods. But when we tried to check our phones for the route, none of them would turn on. Not just no signal, dead. Completely unresponsive. Kyle's GPS watch was frozen, stuck on 4:12 a.m., the exact time the photo must have been taken. We started walking, but it felt like the forest was shifting. The trail markers we'd followed on the way in were gone. Trees looked different. Landmarks weren't where we remembered them. And then we found another Polaroid. This one was of Jess and me, taken from behind, walking through the woods. Just like we were at that very moment. That's when panic really set in. Jess broke down crying. Kyle was shaking. Marcus started yelling, saying we needed to split up and run in different directions. Kyle refused, insisted we stick together. As we were arguing, we heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, crunching leaves just beyond the tree line. We froze. The sound stopped. Then, out of the woods, a figure stepped into view. Tall, filthy, barefoot, with long hair hanging in front of his face. His clothes were ripped, skin smeared with dirt. He didn't speak, didn't move, just stared, smiling. We ran. I didn't look back. My legs burned. My chest felt like it was going to explode, but I didn't stop. We ran for what felt like hours, until finally, by some miracle, we stumbled onto a dirt road. A ranger's truck was coming down it, headlights cutting through the trees like salvation. We screamed and waved until he stopped. He let us in, asked what the hell had happened. We tried to explain, but nothing came out right. He looked pale when we told him where we'd been. Said that section of the forest had been closed for years. Said the trails out there hadn't been maintained since before COVID. There weren't supposed to be any people in Black Hollow at all. The next day, he went back to check our campsite. He found nothing. No signs of our gear, no Polaroids, no footprints, nothing. Just one thing. Lying on the ground near where our tents had been. Another photo. Fresh, crisp, taken from the trees. It was of the ranger's truck. We'd heard the warnings, of course. The old man at the gas station said, "You don't camp in Dry Creek during summer. Not unless you've got a death wish." But we laughed it off. Jess said he was just trying to scare tourists. Kyle called him local flavor. The sky was clear, the forecast looked fine, and the idea of setting up camp in a wide, empty riverbed just felt cool. Like our own little slice of nowhere. We parked the truck at the edge of the ridge, hiked down to the dry basin, and pitched our tents on the soft, cracked earth. That first night was perfect. Warm, peaceful, the stars so bright they didn't even look real. We stayed up late telling ghost stories and roasting marshmallows over the fire. But by morning, the air felt wrong. It was heavy. Thick. A low humidity clung to our skin, and the horizon had that bruised purple hue. Still, no one said it. We didn't want to admit we might have made a mistake. Around noon, thunder rumbled in the distance. Not overhead, far off, but steady, like a warning drumbeat. We debated moving camp, but Marcus had twisted his ankle earlier climbing a nearby boulder. Said it was just a sprain, but he was limping bad and carrying him out wouldn't be easy. We figured we had time. Worst case, we'd ride out a little rain in the tents and head back the next day. By mid-afternoon, the sky went black. No sunset, no gradual change. Just sudden, smothering darkness. The first raindrops hit like pebbles. Huge, cold, spaced out. Then came the wind, so strong it yanked one of the tents loose before we could stake it down. We tried to gather our gear, but within minutes, the drizzle turned into a deluge. Water poured from the cliffs above us, sliding down rock walls and pooling fast. That's when we realized we'd made a massive mistake. The riverbed wasn't just a scenic backdrop, it was a trap. The water came from nowhere and everywhere. One second the earth was dry, the next it was a rushing torrent. Not ankle deep, not something you could wade through. It was violent, white water. A whole wall of it slammed through the camp like a freight train, snapping tent poles, carrying off our bags, our food, our supplies. We scrambled uphill, slipping in the mud, shouting over the roar. I remember Jess screaming Marcus's name. He was slower, struggling with his bad leg. Kyle and I grabbed him and hauled him up toward a jagged ridge just above the flood line. The water chased us like it was alive. By the time we reached higher ground, we were soaked to the bone. Night fell fast, and the storm didn't let up. We huddled beneath an overhang, shivering, hungry, watching everything we had vanish below us. It was too dark to see clearly, but every now and then, a flash of lightning would light up the riverbed, and we'd catch glimpses. our cooler tumbling like a toy, a sleeping bag snagged on a branch, one of our backpacks swirling in a whirlpool before disappearing for good. The water just kept rising. Marcus's ankle was worse than he let on. Swollen, maybe broken. We tore strips of shirt to wrap it, but it didn't help much. He couldn't walk without crying out. Our fire was gone. Our food, gone. No cell signal, no dry clothes. Hypothermia set in quick. Jess's lips turned blue. Kyle wouldn't stop shaking. And the rain, it just kept coming. At some point that night, I thought I heard something upstream, a crack, a rumble. I told myself it was thunder. But it was deeper, more solid, like something massive giving way. Later, we found out a natural dam had burst upstream. That's what really doomed us. Around 3 a.m., the water crept up past the ridge. We had maybe 6 feet of clearance left. That's when we stopped hoping for rescue. That's when we started planning to climb. With no gear, no rope, nothing but slick rock and desperate hands. Kyle went first, Jess next. I stayed with Marcus, trying to support him as we scrambled higher. Every ledge was harder. Every second counted. The river below us roared like it wanted to swallow the whole mountain. We didn't talk. We just climbed. Eventually, the rain eased. Not stopped, just eased. Dawn broke, weak and colorless. We made it to a narrow plateau just wide enough for the 4 of us to collapse. I don't know how we survived that night. Maybe sheer luck, maybe something watching over us. But we made it. A Ranger helicopter spotted us late the next day. When they pulled us up, I looked down at what used to be Dry Creek. It wasn't dry anymore. It looked like it never had been. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if we'd set up 10 feet lower, or if Marcus's ankle had given out mid-climb, or if we hadn't ignored that old man at the gas station. I haven't gone camping since, and I don't think I ever will. We didn't plan to end up in the mountains during a storm, let alone in a stranger's cabin. It started as a weekend hike, just 4 of us. Me, Kayla, Derek, and Tom. We were maybe 6 miles off the main trail when the sky turned. One moment it was just overcast. The next it was pouring like we were underwater. A kind of cold, relentless rain that slices sideways and soaks through your bones. Thunder cracked overhead so loud it felt like the trees might split. We needed shelter, fast. That's when we saw the cabin. It was tucked behind a thicket of pine, maybe 100 yards off the path. Looked abandoned, gray wood faded from years of weather, windows shuttered tight, the front steps half rotted. But it was standing and dry. We banged on the door for a few seconds before Tom tried the handle. It creaked open. I still remember the smell that hit me first. Not moldy or musty like I expected, but warm, faintly smoky, familiar, like someone had just made a fire not long ago. Inside, it was off. That's the only way I can describe it. Everything looked old, but not neglected. A cast iron stove in the corner was still warm to the touch. A coat hung on a hook by the door. A loaf of bread, half eaten, sat on the small table. Someone had been here recently, very recently. But we didn't see anyone. No vehicle, no light, no sign of life outside. The storm howled louder, and we figured we'd take our chances indoors for the night and leave first thing in the morning. We convinced ourselves it was probably a seasonal hunter's shack or something, and that maybe they'd gone out before the storm hit. We split up to explore. Stupid, I know, but it felt necessary. The cabin had 2 small rooms in back. One door was locked, not jammed, locked from the inside. The other room was filled with shelves of canned food, ammunition, survival gear. Rows of it, meticulously labeled. This guy's a prepper. Derek muttered. We shouldn't be here. He was right. But the storm was getting worse, and we didn't have another option. We agreed to stay just the night. No touching anything, no snooping. Just warmth, sleep, and out at first light. That night, around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of footsteps on the porch. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I held my breath. For a second, I thought maybe it was a deer or something. But then the footsteps circled to the side of the cabin. Gravel crunching, wet leaves rustling. A figure passed by the window, tall, broad shoulders, holding something long in one hand. We all heard it. Kayla sat up, eyes wide. Tom reached for his flashlight, but I grabbed his wrist. I whispered, "Don't. Just stay still." The steps moved again, around the back, toward the locked door. We heard the click of something metal, then silence. Minutes passed, maybe 10, maybe 30. Time twisted into a slow crawl. Finally, I crept to the window and peeked through the cracked shutter. Nothing, just dark trees swaying in the storm. But I knew, deep in my chest, we weren't alone anymore. At sunrise, the rain had slowed, but fog had rolled in thick. We packed our stuff, ready to bolt. As we opened the door to leave, we saw it. A note, taped to the outside of the door with a hunting knife. "You shouldn't be here. You have 1 hour." That was it. Nothing else? Not signed, not threatening, at least not directly. But the message was clear. We bolted, as fast as we could, straight back to the trail, soaked and stumbling. Marcus, who'd barely said a word all morning, finally broke the silence when we were nearly back to the truck. He turned to me, pale-faced, and said, "The locked room. Someone opened it." I saw the door was cracked when we left. I didn't say anything. I couldn't, because I'd seen it too. And worse, I saw muddy boot prints, leading from that back room, out the back of the cabin, around to where we had been sleeping. He had been there, the whole time, watching, listening. I still don't know who he was. A survivalist, a recluse, someone who lives off-grid and doesn't want visitors, or something darker. All I know is, we were lucky. He gave us a chance. He let us go. But I'll never forget the sound of those footsteps, the heat of that stove, or how close we came to never walking out of that cabin at all.